Welcome back to another top 5 ranking video, and this time it's gonna be the top 5 best bosses. No, this is not a top 5 best final bosses, but top 5 best enemy bosses.
Number 10.
At the number 5 spot is a very weird one, but it is the plushie tower variants from the Waxy game mode or whatever. You know the one I'm talking about, the FNAF collaboration. Don't even try to deny it. What I like about this specific game mode are the boss designs for pretty much every single boss here. So around 10, you encounter the scouts. For whatever reason, instead of these bosses being like animatronics or whatever, they are instead plushie variants, or I guess raw animatronic variants of them, which I'm pretty sure is just plushies. And the first one you encounter is the scout one, who has a pretty hefty amount of HP. However, if you have a bunch of like teammates who have putting down a bunch of their like minions, like for example cowboys, scouts, and shotgunners, and this guy's not really a big deal. But what's cool is that, you know, it's a enemy that is completely different to what you were pretty much facing up against. Usually in these types of game modes you would be facing off against the regular boss dude, like big zombie dude, and that's about it. But instead, you're fighting kind of like a friend or something like that who has been completely taken over by the Sims. And you eventually find the shotgunner as a plushie. I don't know why he's a plushie there, but I mean, yes, he is a plushie, and it's cool that he is in this game mode as well. And then you fight a commander one, which I also think is pretty cool. And he also has a hefty amount of HP. I don't know what his ability is, even though he like does the rate of fire ability, the regular commander, but this plushie one, I think, speeds up the enemies. I think either does that or enhances their HP, or I actually don't even know what he does, but he does something with his ability, which is also kind of cool, on how a commander that was completely like joined their side or taken over also is using his own abilities to help his new teammates. These guys are in this game mode, and it's really cool for the very first time when you're playing this. Well, for the very first time when you get to see these unique type of bosses instead of the good old-fashioned big slow boss, speedy boss, those types of bosses. That's what I like about this game mode. And aside from that, I don't really like this game mode too much, but I mean, these bosses kind of make up for it.
My dick fell off!
Number 16.
Into the number 4 spot, we have the mini final boss guardians. So what I'm talking about are pretty much, well, the mini final boss guardians that appear on the exact, or at least the final wave before the final boss wave. And if you know what I'm talking about the molten titans for the molten boss, and then there are the fallen guardians for the fallen king, and then there's a polluted wasteland mode. So yeah, those types of guys. What I really like about these guys is that they're kind of like a little bit of a bodyguard before you fight the like president, or at least the final boss of the game mode. And they kind of are a general, like when you first see them you're like, oh Jesus Christ, what am I going up against? And then when you actually get to fight like the final boss, you're just like, Jesus Christ, his bodyguards were so annoying, or like so tough, and this guy is even stronger. And the more or less what I like about these guys is that in Fallen, there is obviously the Fallen Guardians, and not gonna lie, these guys are cool, but also they have those like spears, and they have a huge amount of HP, and this guy spawns a ton of them. I believe like 4 of them, and they all have 15,000 HP. And it's already a real big enough battle to take those guys down, while the king is like using his stun ability, spawning more troops, or you know, using lightning to actually take down your troops. And in my opinion, they are a pretty cool reminder of how far you got into the game, and there's just one last challenge you need to do in order to see the final boss.
Number 7.
At the number 3 spot, we have the intermediate mode mutants. So I already said how many times I just didn't like this game mode. However, the more times I played it, the more I was like, okay, this game mode is not as bad. And the one thing, or at least few things I like about this game mode, aside from the final boss, is the mutants that he sends out as mini bosses or whatever. So the first one you see is the Frankenstein dude, and I guess he's like the only quote-unquote unfailed experiment, I think, since he regenerates. And I guess it's a pretty good tutorial, but just right before Fallen King, or just at least the Fallen game mode, because you're gonna be fighting some tough enemies that require a lot of damage in order to to take them down. And then you fight some sort of dude with like a cyborg arm, you know, with a cane for some reason, and I don't know why he has that. And I guess he is a pretty cool way of like thinking of like a what the hell, why does he have like a cane and not like a, I don't know, bigger arm or something like that? Like why does he have that? And then one of my favorite ones is the Berserker, which I don't even know if that's even his name, probably not. And there's also another one called like the Raver, but I mean, he's just a mid one in my opinion. But this Berserker is by far the coolest in my opinion, because I mean, look at this guy. It makes you wonder what the hell he was even supposed to be before this game mode, or at least before he was released from his prison or experiment or whatever, because like he has two massive arms and a literal spinal cord poking out of his back, and it makes you wonder like what the fuck was he supposed to be? Was he supposed to have like a bunch of crab legs on his back, or maybe even just, you know, functioning legs to where he was this titan-sized monster, or something else entirely?
Number 12.
Okay, this is where we actually get to the point of the list where it actually starts to make sense. Coming into the number 2 spot, we have the giant slow boss that pretty much appears in every single game mode. I believe that he is one of the best, obviously. So one of the things that just makes him so insanely likable in my opinion is just the fact that there's not much to him, but also just the fact of how much money he can literally give to you as a player, or at least to your troops. So everyone knows that this guy has a huge amount of HP, and thankfully, or godly gifted, is insanely slow, which means you can milk as much money as possible from him, especially when you're using cowboys, because as soon as this guy appears, you know that it's literally payday. You know that you are going to get so much money. Obviously it depends really on how much HP he has, because if he has 1600, I think that's how much he has in like all the other game modes except for Fallen. That 1600 transfers over to your money, and if you're using cowboys, you get bonus obviously. And in all the other game modes of like Fallen, with like the automatic Fallen game mode effects to it, he has 2000 HP, and with obviously Cowboy, that'll make you a shitload of money. Just the fact of just how weak of this guy in this game is, but also just how much he turns the game from you barely making that much money from, like, you know, farming or whatever, to all of a sudden, wow dude, I'm getting around nearly $2,000 from every single enemy all of a sudden. And those 2,000 buckaroos or whatever actually make a huge difference to what you can upgrade, and will necessarily give you a massive head start. And the best part is that this game, after like, I don't know, round 20-ish something, starts to actually spam these guys like crazy, especially into like the 30s waves. This guy is amazing. However, there is one more boss that is just slightly better than this guy.
Number 1.
Check this out.
Coming into the number 1 spot on what the best boss is currently in this game, in my opinion, it is the Necroman. Okay, no, I'm just joking. It is the Speedy boss. This guy, in my opinion, is amazing. For both gameplay-wise, for strategy-wise, and, well, financial gains, just like the good old-fashioned giant slow boss. At around round 30 is when you pretty much meet this guy for the very first time. And at this point, you already have some decently strong, powerful troops. But if you spent the entire game not prioritizing your troops too much and, you know, mainly going for farming, you're gonna have a pretty rough time. Well, why? This guy is very fast. Not like Fallen Guy's Glitch Guy is fast, but pretty fast, and has a hefty amount of HP. I remember fighting this guy for the very first time in Molten, or at least Easy game mode or whatever, and I remember just losing to this guy so many times because he was such a literal bastard. But once you get more stronger troops or whatever, it isn't that bad. But the Fallen version of this guy is insanely cool. He went from just a very fast speed running titan to a literal guy who sprints on all 4 legs with 2 massive arms, or to be in fact, and is just so insanely threateningly like designed that whenever this guy pops up, you're like, oh Jesus Lord Almighty, please let us have just enough just enough troops to take him down and get us that amount of money from this guy. And not only that, but there's also a polluted wasteland variant of him, and he's even more powerful with like triple the amount of HP he has, from 6,000 to like 18,000 or something. And if you do manage to kill him, he somehow manages to get all of his, or not all of his, but at least 6,000 more HP by his second little head taking full control, and becomes even more powerful and faster. But don't worry, he will go down easily. This guy is insanely powerful, and well, with the amount of money he gives the player, but also just how he changes strats from being calm and peaceful and pretty straightforward to all of a sudden we need to prepare ourselves before wave 30 is fantastic. I love his mechanics in the game, and this solidifies him as the best mini boss in TDS.